Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the extra episode from White Album 2. This is a bonus story which appeared in the PlayStation 3 version of the game after Kazusa normal route. So far, Setsuna's trying to pull Haruki out of his depression, but she has ended up mentally wounding herself to the point where Haruki's like, look, you are now breaking down. Don't come see me ever again. Which came as quite a shock to her. Then we shifted gears to Kazusa, who was trying to fulfill her mother's final wish of playing with a symphony, but she is not getting along with the orchestrator of the orchestra. So let's continue on checking in with Kazusa. My suite at the Integral Hotel in Paris reminded me of the place where Mom and I lived together somehow. Yes, the place where I had lived with Mom half a year ago, in that country. Japan, huh? My final concert in Japan, which that bastard conductor had so kindly called a play recital. Come to think of it, my motivation then had been something like this too. Was my piano playing only good enough to scoop up some faint hope out of the despair of being rejected by the world? Had I even managed to do that, actually? For example, if this concert were to be a success, would it save Mom? That's a super sad sentence to read. Holy crap. I think there's a difference between understanding that fulfilling someone's final wish is like a beautiful thing to give them and fulfilling someone's wish in the hopes that it brings them back to life and health, And Kazusa betting on the latter is really not going to be good for her mental health, when the inevitable ends up happening. So, for example, would my performance give her hope for living and allow her to keep going for a long while yet? Or would she be satisfied enough by my performance to feel that she no longer had any regrets? And was it not possible that my playing Cloture would end up being a requiem for Mom? Even if it were, should I still throw everything into playing it? Should I remove every regret that might remain to her? Should I give everything I had to give? This is ridiculous. Yeah, right. Imagining something like that right now was nothing short of hubris. The way things were going, I couldn't begin to conceive of this concert going well. But what was there for me to do? I couldn't even complain except in my own imagination. Because the mother I knew best, strong, effortless, ready to accept anything, only existed in my imagination anymore. My changed mother, weepy, nostalgic, like some old lady, grown weak, like any ordinary person. Was there no way for her to go back to how she was? Come to think of it, whenever I talked to my teacher, Flugel, about Mom, our opinions always clashed. The Yoko you know is different from the one I know, Kazusa. Yoko, as I knew her, was full of ambition, jealousy, and conflict. An immature, inexperienced, wild young person. You don't even compare. As she got older and gained more experience, she transformed little by little into the aloof Yoko of today. So, from my perspective, Yoko is a changed woman. And this is hard, I think, especially for children to grasp about their parents. I mean, obviously, every person is known by every other person as different. Everyone sees different sides of the same person. But especially to children who grew up kind of idolizing their parents, thinking their parents were, they knew everything, they were good, they tried their best, they're really amazing people. And then you kind of grow up and you see, it's actually just a person, right? You stop being that child looking at your parent and you start realizing they are another person. Yeah, they're your parent, but they are multifaceted in ways you couldn't even imagine as a child. And so for Kazusa, thinking her mom was, she has a lot of opinions out about her mom that we won't get into, but finally seeing her as well, she's weak. She's an ordinary person. She is. And coming to realize that is a very painful and difficult thing. But she's just like any other person. Hearing that, I realized that there were two people within Mom as I knew her. The first was the one who was completely indifferent to me when I was a kid. Yoko Toma, the pursuer, interested in only how far she could transcend in the performances she gave. The other one was Yoko Toma, my beloved mother, who had been so easygoing until just recently. Change, growth, and maturity, you can't conflate getting older with declining. Change is an inevitable fact of being human. You just refuse to change, Kazusa. And that's very important because she does. Kazusa kind of stagnated. That's why Haruki kept saying, I'm not the Haruki you were in love with in high school. Like, I'm different. That's why Kazusa kept saying, Setsuna's not the same person I knew. She's grown into a beautiful and amazing woman. And yes, from an outsider's perspective, Kazusa has grown too. But kind of like her feelings were stuck in time for 5 years, she hasn't grown any more multifaceted as a person in 5 years. That's not healthy. And it's not just in her piano, it's just in general in life. That's why her mom needs her to grow now. No good. I was starting to doze off. If I fell asleep like this, I would catch a cold. I might actually end up canceling my contract. As usual, a vaguely familiar ceiling filled my dim field of vision. At the same time, that conversation with my teacher filled my head. Change was inevitable? Then I would play the piano so that I could guide Mom to age in the way I wanted her to. Like I played the piano then to push him away, to give him back to her. That would work, right? That was the only way, right? It is a painful question to have to ask yourself. Toma. Hey, sorry, but I need you to get up. Oh, this was the first time he and I ever... He told me that he fell for me with one look back then. That he got caught up in watching me, crashed out in the classroom. Why would he tell me that 5 years later? Stupid. What now? I think this might be the first time you ever started a conversation with me, Toma. No, I didn't. Thanks. Shut up. And this was the first day we ever really talked, relying only on the thought that he might be there. I came all the way to school, suffering under the blazing sun, and searched desperately for the right timing to go and talk to him. God, stupid girl. By that point, I was already in love, wasn't I? She was absolutely in love. It is so interesting to read the side novels of WA2 and see just how much Kazusa was in love with Haruki at that point. It really adds a whole nother depth to the introductory chapter and to the whole story. Highly recommend you check that out. Say, Toma-san, don't you think we could be good friends? No way. Why would you think that? Well, we have similar tastes, for one thing. I have no idea what you mean by that. You don't? But she already knew. Before we got to know each other, she had already seen through my feelings. So infuriatingly smart. So dangerous that I wanted to cry. And so I accepted her. I accepted a type of relationship even more difficult than unrequited love. Friendship. Which, to a normal person sounds bogus, but to Kazusa, yeah. Because you have to put effort into friendship. You have to really try and understand another person. Unrequited love is easy. You just love another person. You don't do anything. That's fine. It's painful, but it doesn't require effort. It just happens to you. Friendship will always require some effort. Well, let's go. Toma-san, Haruki-kun. Sorry, everything got all crowded because of me. Really not a fan of that humble bragging thing you do. Kitahara, let's go. Right, and you better laugh at me if I miss my solo. Of course we'll laugh. I'll laugh and point. Ah. As a result, we became a trio, a group of irreplaceable friends. I knew how painful, how sad that would make things, that someone would have to back out, and no matter who it was, the pain would be excruciating. But I couldn't stand up against that sweet temptation. I wanted friends. I was just like her. Which I think is the first time Kazusa's ever admitted that she had wanted friends back then. We know that she liked Haruki. We know that, she came to like Setsuna as a friend, but this is the first time her loneliness is really kind of being admitted and saying she really did want friends back then. It was just hard for her to reach out because of her fear of abandonment. That's not something I want to hear from my best friend's boyfriend. You were the one who left me first. You moved somewhere unreachable. Unreachable, but still always right there. You were the one who came up with that torture. Yes, I knew things would end up this way, but I backed away and pushed. I broke the three of us. I made a mess of our irreplaceable group. Hey, Kitahara, I was really in love with you. I know. When Setsuna took you from me, it hurt like hell because of that. I said it. I'm sorry, Setsuna, but it's just a voice anyway. We'll never see each other again. This was how I ripped it apart. I hurt the one I loved, hurt my best friend, ran away on my own. If only I could have avoided getting hurt myself. If only I could have just forgotten. Haruki? Huh? What, you're already here? What? Haruki. Kazusa? Really? If only I could have just forgotten about it after 5 years had passed. Change was an inevitable part of being human. Inevitable, right? Then why did I... And for Kazusa to realize herself, truly deeply realize that she has stagnated as a person is a good first step for her recovering and is a good first step for her to getting better. Although really, it's so late in the game now. Oh, make sure there's plenty of meat. I know. I don't need any fish, though. You shouldn't be that picky. No cabbage or onions either. Actually, don't give me any vegetables at all. You can't just reject the entire meaning of this stew. The vegetables are the point. Why couldn't I live like Mom? Like other people? Would I be able to fill 5 years worth of blank space with just one day sitting around the same dining table? You swear? Do you swear to make me your wife, Haruki? I do. In sickness and in health. For better or worse. For richer, for poorer. You'll love me and honor me and comfort me and help me. I swear. As long as I live, I will devote myself to you. And having these feelings for so long, I knew it was pointless, but I still went with it. Because after this, was I really going to keep on with this dream? Was I going to make myself see the end of it? What an idiot. Couldn't I have at least let it end happily in my dreams? Wouldn't letting it end here be best? God, I hate this. It's fine in the beginning, but as it gets worse and worse, we just get back into Kazusa normal, which was the worst. It was so painful. But you can't choose where your dreams end, and a lot of the trio's dreams are probably pretty horrid. Let go. We have to smile when we split up. We can't keep dragging this out. Haruki, I'm not holding on. Just pull your hand away and you'll be free. You can go anywhere. Don't make me do this. I wanted you to let go first. No. I wanted you to drop me. How could I possibly? It's not fair. For which one of us? So stupid. Like I said, which one of us? It's so sad. And that's the biggest problem between Katsusa and Haruki, is neither of them wanted to let go. And I mean, this is in a literal sense, but in a less literal sense, neither of them wanted to be the one to let go of their relationship. They both knew that it needed to be broken off. And neither of them wanted to be the one to break it off because of their hope that it would work out. And so they just got caught in this like really, really dangerously unhealthy relationship because, you know, of course, he still had Setsuna, which made it the unhealthy relationship. Ay, ay, ay. I had seen it all the way through, even though I didn't want to. It was like a revolving lantern, the few hundred days that my life overlapped with his. For me, it was an eternity. Half my life. I thought I had finally stopped having that dream. I had tried so hard not to think about it. The worlds we inhabited were different. Our hearts and our bodies were in completely different places. He belonged to her now. I'm so stupid. I checked my address book. Of course, his number was no longer there. I had erased it from my memory entirely as far as I knew. In other words, this was reality. A world that wasn't Japan, or half a year ago, or 5 years ago. Haruki. 6 years since we met. 5 years since we parted. Half a year since we parted again. I hadn't managed to change in 5 years. So how could anyone expect me to change in just half a year? But the biggest thing is here now is that her mom's dying. Like, actually, only a few months left. And she needs to change and she needs to overcome this new obstacle if she wants to fulfill her mom's last wish. So the pressure is on, really. But being under pressure, it's also harder for her to change naturally. And that's where she's kind of stuck. She is trying, though. And her trying this hard and her calling up all the orchestras and joining one and going to France, that's a lot for her. And honestly, I am really, really proud of what she's done. So even if she cannot see the change in herself, we as the reader can kind of start seeing it from the outside. Now she just needs to become comfortable and confident in her decisions, and that will kind of solidify the growth and the differences which she's making in her life. So, let's move on to part 9. Summer was over. A cool wind blew in the mornings and evenings, heralding a new season. But autumn hadn't started yet. During the day, bright sunlight poured down relentlessly, denying the coming of that new season. Sis? These days, and their halfway repetitions of hot and cold did manage, little by little, to eliminate some of the heat that had built up in town. Yes, and the same went for the heat that I had been hanging on to since winter. I'm coming in. What? Oh, you're here? Why didn't you answer me? Of course I'm here. I haven't escaped out the window yet. Don't make it sound that bad. No one's imprisoning you here. Might as well be imprisoned. Oh, Setsuna. I had already lashed out like that more than enough for the past month. So, what? Your dinner's in the fridge. Mom said to eat it if you get hungry at all. Oh, and they said on the news just now, don't care. Leave me alone. You don't have to keep sulking like that. We're all worried about you. For the past month, ever since that day, I'd been confined to a cell made up of the kindness of my family and others around me. I had felt horrible throughout the summer holidays, unable to take a single step outside. Once the break was over, I did go back to work, but I'd been returning home at a regular time each day instead of forcing myself to do overtime. My boss had allowed it without much explanation required. Maybe that's just how obvious the seriousness of my condition was at the time. Okay, first thing, going to work every day but not working overtime is normal, so that shouldn't be a point of contention at all. But not being okay since summer, not being able to take a single step outside, that's horrible. She really did. She just kind of absorbed Haruki's illness, and now she is too afraid to become a part of the everyday normal world. And that's not good. Have you taken any medicine today? I'm all right. All right because you took it, or all right so you don't need to take it? I'm going to work like normal. I'm completely fine. But you run out of gas like this every weekend. Well, never mind. Get out. I'm going to sleep. It's only 9 o'clock. If my condition is as worrying as it is, then shouldn't I go to sleep early? Come on, which is it? I know. Sorry. Good night. Actually, my current state wasn't all that dire. The brief, drastic deterioration in my health had mellowed out since the summer break. Mornings were still a little hard, but I could get up by the time I needed to leave. I wasn't sweating excessively. I could ride the train just fine, and I didn't have any significant difficulties at work either. Which is at least a step up from what Haruki had become. So really, there were no problems at all. Everything was back to normal. I'd managed to regain my old weekdays, and soon enough I would regain my old weekends too. But that excuse didn't pass with my family. Dad had started to object to my weekend outings. He'd said that going back to the same lifestyle would just bring about the same symptoms again. That because I wasn't pushing myself right now, because my main source of stress wasn't there, I was just mistakenly assuming I had recovered. In other words, Dad believed that the main source of my stress lay in my weekends. Which, to be fair, isn't wrong. It's just, why did she get so stressed out by the weekends? And everybody knows, whether or not they decide to say it flat out is probably to be determined. But Haruki was just, honestly, her stress and worrying about him, her hopes for her relationship, which weren't coming to fruition, just completely broke her down. Takahiro had started treating me strangely carefully. I mean, he had always been nice enough as a little brother, but now he handled me with kid gloves. His usual retorts had clearly decreased in frequency. We never fought at all over anything, big or small. As a result, we weren't reaching clear-cut reconciliations anymore either. Our conversations lately always ended on a weird, uncomfortable note. And Mom's reaction hurt the most of all. She didn't question my actions with any real conviction. She didn't worry over me any more than necessary. She kept watch over me from a certain distance. But just once, I saw it. After waking up thirsty in the middle of the night, I came downstairs to find Mom sitting alone in the pitch-black kitchen, crying quietly. Oh, because she just wants what's best for her daughter. Honestly, the very worst part of Haruki going for Kazusa in the game was seeing Setsuna's mom cry. I really, really think that was like the worst for me. I cried a lot. And so this is also very painful. After that, even going downstairs became troublesome, and I barely left my room on weekends, which left me unable to go to Minami Suetsugu, a single station away. When I went down to the living room for the first time today, deliberately stepping loudly so as to be heard, there was nobody there. I opened the fridge, and as Takahiro had said, there was a single serving left over from dinner, wrapped up and sitting alone on the middle shelf. I didn't touch it, however, instead taking a bottle of barley tea, which I had kept drinking even into September. I poured the barley tea into a cup, sat down at the table, and drank it all in one gulp. The cold tea penetrated my throat and made my stomach hurt a bit. As I looked weakly up at the ceiling, I felt as though the silent, empty living room were mocking me. Look, there's no one to see you. You could walk right out the door. You could go to him. It thrust all of my deceptions at me. This is so unhealthy. This is ridiculously unhealthy. Can't eat, can't function normally, and now voices in your head telling you to go see Haruki. Come on. Talking about my family was just an excuse. The only thing keeping my feet from moving was my own will. I was just so scared. The summer holidays were over. Summer was over. And yet, ever since the day Haruki-kun sent me away, I hadn't taken a single step forward. Through no one's fault, but my own will. Using my family's objections as a pretext, I remained safely here in the cell. No, in the cage that was my own house. Now that I had separated from him, the distance between us was starting to feel too suffocating to close again. If I tried to close it right now, he might shun me. I might end up shunning him. I could end up hurting him deeply. I could get hurt again. But if we kept moving apart like this, he might forget all about me. I might forget all about him. Okay, listen. This is the best case scenario. The best case scenario is Haruki and Setsuna forget about each other. You don't always have to fix something. My God, their relationship has been shattered so many times that the levels of distrust and pain and sorrow, thinking about every little thing that might trigger them, is so much that, you know what, it's healthier just to move on. And Haruki has specifically stated he doesn't want to see her again. For his sake and for her sake, but especially for her sake. And she's still trying so hard to get them to fit back together. But you know what? You don't have to fit together. You can move on. Maybe it doesn't feel like it right now, but you can. Ridiculous. Oy, oy, oy. He could break down even more than he already had. Or maybe having separated would bring him more ease. I might not be able to stand the emptiness left after losing him. Or maybe I would be able to endure it and start living an entirely different life, as though nothing had happened. Every one of these thoughts was terrifying. I loved him, and I was a burden to him. There was no denying either of these facts. Then, did he love me? And was he a burden for me? Yes. Could I continue to have faith in him? Could I follow him blindly like she did? I don't think following him blindly was the healthiest thing. Just because she did that doesn't mean she loved him more. It just means she was dumber. I will say that. Sorry. It's true, though. Maybe a jealous girl like me wasn't suitable for him. What would it be like with her? Would all this stuff I was worrying about not be any hindrance at all for her? Not a matter of what she could do for him, but a matter of what she wanted to do for him. Could I ever hold a candle to her? Well, Kazusa, what would you? Always, always, always comparing herself to Kazusa. He loved them for different reasons. They loved him in different ways. And that's important to remember. So, on that note, before we move on to talking about Kazusa, I think we will stop there for now. So, thank you so much for joining me on this extra episode from White Album 2, and I will be back with the next part shortly. Until then, hope you take care. See you.